morning. It's always hard to interrupt the fellowship, but just got to get started. It's a little hot. Is that good? Very good. So we're continuing. This will be the last section that we cover on the Spirit as we go through Acts in chapter 2, where the Spirit came upon them on Day of Pentecost. And so this will be discussion on the mission of the Spirit. This will be the last one that we kind of cover in our list of topics here today. So throughout this series, we developed 3 key points that just to review back a little bit on these topics, with the hint of recession of Christianity culture in the West, a strong new focus on mission of God has been emerging. At the same time, the unprecedented focus on the Holy Spirit has also been emerging. 2 close connections to renewal of God's mission and of the Holy Spirit go hand in hand. So at this point, just to think of this, what does it mean to live on God's mission at this juncture in time? Just hold that thought. And as we go through this, we'll kind of cover that in a little bit. Start off, let's open in Ephesians 6, verses 17 through 20. Throughout this discussion of the Spirit, I've kind of tried to come up with analogies that kind of pertain to life. And yesterday, I went and got a haircut. Some of you don't know what that is, but well, that's okay. But I'll get there eventually and catch up to you guys. But they always struggle with the cowlick in the back of my head. Well, I've never seen it. I don't know that it's there. But I always tell them about it. And they said, oh yeah, this is a nice one. I said, yep, I've never seen it before. Kind of connects a little bit, bad analogy, but kind of connects to the Spirit. We've not seen it before. We know it's there. We know it's working. And we know that it impacts our life from a standpoint of how God is with us. God poured out His Spirit onto us. And kind of make that poor connection to what we're trying to talk about. So Ephesians 6, 17 through 20. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayer and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. Pray also for me that whenever I speak, words may be given to me so that I may do that. I will be fearless, make known the mysteries of the gospel, for which I am the ambassador in chains. Pray that I may declare it fearlessly as I should. What is Paul telling us there? In relationship to our mission.
Well, basically, he's finishing out his thought about his armor. You put all this armor on, but the way he's holding it all together is by praying in the Spirit.
Yep, and all kinds of prayers, he said. Yep. What does it mean by all kinds of prayers? What is he referring to there? In all, I guess, pray in the Spirit in all occasions. What kind of occasions would he be talking about?
Good, bad, easy, tough.
Correct. What's the easiest prayer to say? Thank you, everything's going good. What's the hardest prayer to say?
I just don't know.
I need your help. The analogy goes back to, I'm gonna get this wrong, but the two conversations between, was it the tax collector and the, help me out here, the tax collector who was with his knees bowed and his hands out, I'm a sinner, comparing to the other gentleman, I lost it. Pharisee, thank you. As far as to be humble in your heart from that standpoint. So,
The hardest prayer to pray is the one where we need to make our groanings and let the Spirit clean it up and take it to God. Because there are times when we don't even know what to say. It feels so
Yes.
heavy, it feels so hard. That not even knowing what to say, and we just groan out, oh God.
Right.
And the Spirit knows where we're going.
to make that connection. To intercede for us or to speak for us from that standpoint, yep. Very good. So with that, what is the difference, again, just a thought here, what is the difference between a church that supports missionaries and a missionary congregation? What is the difference between a church that supports missionaries and a missionary congregation?
A church that supports a missionary, pays for him and lets him do the missionary
Do the work. Huh?
And missionary church does the work themselves.
Right. So I pulled up a definition on this, and so being missional in a church means operating as a sent community. The activity lives out the gospel in everyday life rather than just the internal people of the church events. It shifts the focus from a tractional model, getting people in, to a sent model, going out. The church is seen not as a place for members, but as a missionary agent participating in God's work. So a couple of characteristics that bring out is a sent community. Characteristic sent community is viewing oneself as a sent one, living as a missionary in your neighborhood and workplace. I mean, we could probably have the rest of the afternoon discussing the events that God puts us in, where you all have been at the grocery store, at the park, taking walks, traveling, where you come in and you interface with people, and all of a sudden a conversation stirs up about the gospel, about God. I used this example before. The gentleman at work, you know, you'd ask him how he was doing, he'd say, I'm blessed. He wouldn't, that's all I needed to say, was that he was blessed. But it indicated to us that we could have a further conversation about, you know, why is he blessed? Why does he feel like he's blessed? And those type of things. Yeah.
It's the preacher's job.
Correct. That's, yeah,
We pay him, so it's his job.
that's, yeah. And that's, I've been in a few groups that have had that thought process.
Just so everybody knows, Maurice is kidding about it.
That's right.
I just wanted to make sure.
No, but that's been, we've all heard
Yes.
that many, many times. It's the preacher's job.
But not you.
Well, I'll go ahead, thank you.
But to that point, I've heard it said, what's the difference between the church people and the preacher? The minister, what's the difference? Not much. They're doing this. We're doing all the same. We're preaching the gospel. We're going out. you know, just as much responsibility as the minister as it is to us to do this. There's no distinction between what Matthew tells us to do. Go and preach the word, go and preach to all the world.
I think God's mission is to all of us, to Matthew and to us. The mission's the same.
Correct.
He just has a different talent.
Correct.
He uses that, but the mission's the same call.
And there's, you know, you all talked to Matt before, there's always stories he gets when he goes out and meets people as well. And they interact with him a little differently when they find out he's a minister, just because of that persona that brings to the community. But it's the same one when you talk to people and the light goes on, oh, you're part of a church. Well, I go to this church, and then you're able to have those conversations that is, I feel a lot is led where God is leading us, the Spirit's leading us into certain situations. Let's see. So missional community, another characteristic. Small groups or family of missionaries, servants who live life together, focusing on specific neighborhoods or needs rather than just studying the Bible. So, you know, the small groups or the gatherings that we do, those are important because it brings community with our families, but it's also good to have that community aspect where we go out into the community and do work to support others as well. Everyday evangelism, sharing the gospel into daily routines, meals, work, neighborhood, and gatherings. I'm always, it's not throwing back, but I guess I'm always impressed, nowhere in the country that I've been, where I sense that some of this is changing, but nowhere in the country other than here, where you'll go into a restaurant and see other people praying for the meal. And I think that's encouraging to others that see that, you know, from that engagement. Kingdom focus. Focus on the growth of God's kingdom through service, such as starting an orphanage as an example, or caring for the poor, rather than just growing their own congregation. So a couple of characteristics that I think fit to a lot of what we do here as well, but also fits to a lot of congregations that you see across the country where they're actively working to do that. I'm trying to think of the name of the congregation that's down the street on Cedar Lane. They're always packed with food and pallets and stuff. Is that what it is? What's that?
West Side Nigeria?
Is that, yeah, okay. I hit it just about the time, you know, there's no traffic, but I'm sure that there's a lot of traffic in that area. But it shows that they're supporting the community, just like with our Day of Hope, some of the other things that we do here for the community as well. Any other thoughts or comments? So the churches of North America, this is just going to read from my lesson plan here, whether they know it or not, are now in a mission field. This has become a stark new reality in our time. So over 30 years ago, a Leslie Newbeen, longtime minister of India, asked the startling question, can the West be converted? He predicted that soon missionaries of the global South would be streaming to the West, Europe and North America. A renew and warning faith of these increasing secular cultures has predicted his statement to be true. Today, the movement of God's mission in the world is not primarily from the West, but the rest of the world, as it once was, but from everywhere to everywhere. The Spirit is calling the empowerment Christians throughout the world to participate in God's mission. Some are called to be missionaries in a classic sense, to leave their homes, place, and respond to the calling of Christians in other places. But all Christians are called to be missional missional, that is, to invest time in the mission of God from where they are. Thoughts on that?
Seems like there's a lot more distractions in the West.
Correct.
The idea of being dependent. I mean, what do we need and who do we need? We have everything we need, right? If I don't, I'll go buy it. I'll go wait it. I'll acquire it somehow. And I think in the West, there's a mindset of, why do I even need God? And I think that's why you see a kingdom movement more so in countries like Africa and some of the Asian countries, because they understand what it means to be in need.
Yes.
And because Western principles are built on freedom and liberty and independence, we've lost this mindset that, as crazy as it sounds, I need God.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
There's a mindset, we've lost the mindset of I need God.
Yes.
I got everything I need right here. I am comfortable. Why do I need God?
And not too long ago, it was, I may have mentioned this before, everybody would dial into the radio station, WIFM. What's in it for me? And that was, that's been a change that I've seen recently since this has been published, but I'm hopeful when I start hearing and seeing things that people are getting back to church, they're getting back to the communities. And so the hope is that we'll start seeing more of that. And young people that are getting back into the church, in any church, but just getting back into that belief system that there's a higher power. Any other thoughts?
I think it's interesting that if you're, for the history majors here, when you study early American history
Mm-hmm.
and all the documents that came out in those time, each state or colony at the time, I mean, just thousands of pages. They're just cram-packed full of, about being with God and God's guidance over us, and I mean, just page after page of that kind of conversation with the Lord. There's a story that the Congress met the first time trying to develop documents. They couldn't get anywhere, a lot of arguing, and so finally somebody said, tomorrow, why don't we go to the churches? They went to every church in Washington, D.C. and asked for prayer from that congregation.
Mm-hmm.
They walked. There was one on every corner. That's how it was designed in Washington, D.C. One corner, every intersection was for a church. They went to every church and they prayed for them. Monday morning, they got to work and wrote all the documents.
And everything came to light.
So they needed help and they knew it and they got it. But that was different back then than it is today.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking of, I'm again hoping what I'm hearing and seeing that things will start to progress, but also the words that are on our currency.
Words on every building in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, in God we trust, and that gives me some hope when I start seeing things that are actively heading in back to that direction, as opposed to going the other way. So what is the difference between a missionary and being missional?
I think a missionary is one person, whether you support him, wherever he or she is one person. Being missional is everybody in this building. It involves everybody.
It kind of connects as a cultural word too, to some extent, as far as it gives you a vision or mission just by the word missional.
Missional is a mindset. A missionary in a sense is a vocation. But being missional is a mindset.
Yeah.
And even missionaries are missional.
Right.
So should missional-minded people be missionaries?
Because they're just paid paid to do it versus, yeah. So in this time, we are being steadily pressed into new missional posture. It may it may be a discomfort for many, but the pressure enables the church to embrace the true calling of that mission. So there's 5 little elements that or suggestions that for the living of God's mission in the power of the Spirit in our time that we can kind of discuss here quickly. But learning to live in an exile community, what does that mean? Or communities? Think about that for a second. So early Christians spoke of themselves as alien citizens. God's great people of faith acknowledged that they were strangers in exile on earth. Christians are aliens and exiled. Peter says, nevertheless, we must be subject to the Lord's sake in every human institution. During the first 3 centuries, the church, the Christian church, maintained a strong sense of being residing in exile communities in the pagan Roman Empire. But the 4th century, as we've seen, began a new era where the sense of being strange and exile diminishes. That sense is being renewed in this season. Christian faith is taking on more of the characteristic of an exile community around the world. So an exile community, what does that term kind of bring to mind? Outside the mainstream. Yep. Doing things a little bit differently than everybody else. What challenges does that bring to us? What challenges do we have in that type of community where we feel like we're exiled?
You have to be willing to be seen as different.
I'm sorry?
You have to be willing to be seen as different.
Okay, yep. Stand out differently. Put yourself in situations that may not be the norm for what everybody else is doing.
John 17:16, Jesus said that they are not of the world just as I am not of the world.
There you go.
So being alien in the world but not of the world.
Right.
We are not taken out of the world, but we are to remain in the world and be the light and the salt that takes care of the world.
Yeah.
You know, nowadays there are so many clubs that do the same thing as what a church does. Providing clothes, providing
Oh, yes. Yeah.
food, and even, you know, last Tuesday at Come to the Table, you know, we're there and the gentleman asked, where are y'all from? What club are you from? You know, that's where I think we have to shine more than just a piece of clothing.
Right.
Or food or gas or electric, you know, whatever. We have to be different than the clubs that are out there doing the same thing.
Right.
And sometimes we really blend well, and
Yeah.
that's not good.
Set apart.
We have to set
Yeah.
aside.
I think you see that example of the exiles, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Mhm.
They were in exile. God sent them. I mean, it was all part of God's plan. But they stood out. And they followed obeyed his commands. And the king saw, and people higher in office saw something different, and then the king saw something different, and they were put in positions of authority over, you know, the Babylonians. So, and we're the same way, you know. We are called to be different, you know. In 1 Peter it says, you are a chosen people, and we are all chosen, a royal priesthood,
Mhm.
you you know, we have been given the gospel, we've been given this message, a holy nation, a people belonging to God, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. And so that is our missional statement. We have been called out of darkness, we are chosen by God, we are special because we are his children, and we should show that light to the world around us.
Because in showing that, that ties in and connects to God's mission in the spirit that really connects others to us, from putting us into situations where we can be missional and direct with those that are out there as well. Yeah.
I heard a preacher one time say, there's no such thing as a silent Christian.
As a violent Christian?
Silent Christian.
Oh, silent Christian. Okay.
They don't exist if the word Christian is appropriate. They're not silent.
Right.
Now, silent doesn't mean opening your mouth likewise,
Correct.
but going sitting with people at the hospital, sitting cards, doing things that say, we're different. We believe in God, and the Spirit has moved us. We don't have to say all that, but people see that.
Yeah.
But it can't go without saying.
Huh?
And I don't mean to be argumentative with Maurice, I know I am a lot of times. But I think we can get so comfortable, which leads to a complacency of that we can just do. And you talk about living in this exiled community, I think we've got to get reaccustomed to an uncomfortable gospel.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The gospel is not always a feel-good gospel. And because of that, we're okay doing, but we don't want to say it. We don't want to come out and tell people that is sin.
Right.
Okay? We don't want to tell people that for those that are not in Christ, your home is not in heaven. Our actions cannot say those things.
Right.
So I think while actions are good and we need them, they can lead us to be complacent and not willing to share an uncomfortable gospel that does turn into a very comfortable gospel, but those words have to accompany those actions.
Right. Yeah,
And so, you know, one of them was just willing to be quiet, and the other one was really into what he was doing.
yeah,
And we went back and forth, you know, not argumentative. Everything I would tell him, he would say, he'd have
Have
a
the count.
comeback. And I finally said, are you gonna, when you finish your mission, are you gonna become a lawyer? I said, "Because you'd be a really good one." And he invited me to, you know,
yeah,
come talk more with him. I could see where it was going.
yeah.
I think a lot of times, a lot of us hesitate about being good apostles or being, you know, good Christians because we're kind of unsure, you know. We get, I know I get unsure a lot of times about trying to carry on a conversation, say with a non-believer or even with somebody else.
Yeah,
You know, they call me a camel ride.
right. But no, that's a good point, because in their intention, and a very similar example, their intention is the one that's talking is the one that's training the other.
Yeah.
And the other, when I've had those same conversations, Andrew will say, well, we should have said this. I said, no, we just planted a seed in that other person. And that other person is trying to be mentored, but in a sense, you know, saying, or having those conversations with the one that's trying to lead, does plant the seed to the other individual that does, I think, makes it, you know, a mark on that person. But it's being that intentional, you know, being ready in season, out of season, and those type of things. It's a very good example. So that kind of, so what other challenges does this bring? Any other thoughts?
I just want to comment on, I know we talked about benevolence last Sunday.
Mhm.
I don't want to go through, you know, that job description, but it's interesting when the people come in. You know, a lot of them are, they may be single mothers, but they're single grandmothers, and they're raising their grandchildren. It happens all the time. What's interesting to me is, I remember a time when that didn't happen very much.
Right.
If they needed a bill paid, they went to their family, and their family helped them. Well, that doesn't happen much anymore. And if they went to a church, they would go to their church family, and they would help them.
Right.
But they don't go to church anymore. So they go around the churches, and they need help, because their family won't help them. They don't go to any church, and it just, you know, it's just a huge change from when I was a kid. And that's just normally what you did.
Right.
Your family helped you, or your church family helped you. Now these people, they don't have anybody. And they're trying to get help, and they deserve help. The government's not going to help them. So they have nowhere else to go.
Right.
It's just sad.
Which kind of ties back to the structure of the community that, you know, is where we are in Acts 2, where the community came together, but that it was that community.
Yeah.
It wasn't somebody outside the group and all that. But yeah, there's a loss of that that element in our history where you know, people are need that connection from a community standpoint. But you're right, the family typically the ones that would step in and help. You know, from that standpoint.
In our school systems, locally, there are so many children that do not even know who God is. Their parents have never even mentioned it to
Yeah.
them, and they don't know. Our kids
Just
here
here.
kill my grandson killed. They are few and far between in a good school. It's sad.
Yeah. Let's see, I lost my place here. So in what way is Highland Hills living into the sense of being an exile? Let's see, that doesn't make sense. In what way is Highland Hills living into this sense of being a exile community? In what way? I wrote that wrong. Let's do another one. How does it change the character of a community from that standpoint? How does all this change the character of a community? It ties in kind of what you were stating as well. How would we change the community if God was more talked about in the family, in your situation, both situations?
I think an exile community knows their community, and I think the community that a church is exiled into knows that church.
Yeah.
I think they know it. They know it for good things. They know it for a place, as Al was talking about. I know I can go there. I will not be judged. I will be helped. I will be loved on. I will be prayed for. I will be cared for.
Yeah.
I think if you're a missional-minded church, the community that you serve will know you as those things.
Very good.
I think as Al and Sheila and others that work in that, they give testimony. That's what Highland Hills is seen at.
And it,
You'd think they would be upset when they have a $300 utility bill, you can give them $75. At first, that used to bother me, because I'm thinking, they're not gonna be able to pay the utility bill, $75. They are so thankful to get that $75, even if the bill is $300. And you'd think they'd get upset about that, or, gee, well, thanks, but I still got to keep paying the utility. I'm leaving here at the same place. They don't do that at all. They're very thankful to get whatever we get.
whatever, yeah.
God, it's very interesting.
Which speaks that it's not really about the money.
No,
It's about you care about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the message that we want to portray in our community as genuine. Folks that go around for help, they know genuine churches and non-genuine churches. They know if you take time and you talk to me and you pray for me and you know my kids' names and you know my situation.
I ride around with Sheila a lot in the community. But just that girl knows their cars, whatever, but let me tell you, we can go in a place and somebody's gonna run up to her, hey Sheila.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, she doesn't tell me anything about them
yeah.
at that moment. She says, hey, this is my sister, or whatever. Then we get out, and she said, that's huge. For them to know her name,
Right.
or Al's name, or whatever, it would be nice, for them to know my name for something good. But, I do think that's really good that they know who they are.
Right. And the community that you're attached to, as far as they know that it ties back to an organization, is help them, and to Gary's point, love on them and not be judging or anything like that. Very good. Let's see.
I'm always ask myself a question. Say you're looking out that window. How many hundreds of cars have passed or will pass this morning? How many of them know what's going on in here? That's a question that the church ought to ask. How many people that pass in those cars know what's going on in here?
We follow those actions with words.
Yeah.
I got you
And-
back words.
And the words to tie into open hearts and
Yeah.
the loving on them. Yeah, Neil?
I think one of the things that the people that we give that message to is the world and the church, our Christian brothers and sisters here. And the message should be different. The message to the world is, come to Jesus Christ. The message to the people in the church are, let me teach you how to go out
Yes.
and preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. And once you become a Christian, once you accepted Jesus, then you're taught what do you do as a Christian?
Right. What ties back to the beginning of the sent out, you know, as far as being that sent out trained individual or from that standpoint. So I'll just highlight a few of the bullets here. So living into the big story of God's mission. These are the elements of the God's mission and the power kind of characteristics here. That was 2. Number 3 is opening oneself to the Spirit. And then pray in the Spirit. I don't hear that a lot in some of the times of growing up, but what does it mean to pray in the Spirit?
Pray believing. Believing that your prayers are heard and your prayers will be answered. It's praying with confidence. It's praying with boldness.
I'm always reminding myself, those that have been in Arizona, you know it rains every day, right? So during, and the ground gets real dry, and then when it does rain, the rain comes, and their whole year is about in a week during August time frame, and it hits all at once. Floods come, you know, waters apart, all that good stuff. But praying in the Spirit, I always found it an analogy where an uprighteous man came up and said a prayer. They're actually in Oklahoma, which is also dry and dusty. But I thought, he prayed for rain. He prayed for it through this, you know, in a spiritual mindset. But none of us showed up Sunday night with umbrellas. And I thought, well, okay, it's Arizona, it's you know, that's where they send all the freshman weather people anyways, because it's always the same weather every day. But I just found that interesting. I should have brought an umbrella if somebody's praying for rain, prayed it through the Spirit, prayed it conviction from his request. We all should have brought umbrellas because it's, you know, of the rain, the belief of the rain that could be coming. But yeah, tying it back to praying in the Spirit. So the other one was leaving the house to go out and be the sent out. And then we'll have to end it there. So next week we'll start back into tying all this back in together to Acts and the day of Pentecost and how the Spirit came upon them and how the community all ties together that the story in Acts 2 continues on with. All right, thank you very much. Amen.